Welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us. As you probably know, I'm Jayne Bryce. I'm Director of CPD at BSHAA, and we're joined today by the three authors of Sudden Hearing Loss, Stories of Hope, Guidance and Support, Carly Sygrove, Andrea Simonson and Caroline Norman. I was asked, I can't remember what, I'm thinking it's September, October time by the publisher to review the book. I really enjoyed reading this book. It was insightful, it was beautifully written, and I genuinely believe that every audiologist, HAD, GP, NT consultant, HAC should read it, because it reminds us that sudden hearing loss isn't just a clinical event, it's a life-changing experience that affects every part of a person's life. So thank you, ladies, for sending that on to us, and we just thought it'd be wonderful to get on here with you and find out a little bit about you and what brought you together to write this book. So I don't know who wants to start. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what inspired you to be part of the book. Carly, do you want to go first? Okay.
Yep, I can go first. Hi everyone, I'm Carly Sygrove. I'm a hearing loss coach, advocate and writer, and I'm trying to remember how I connected with Caroline and Andrea, and I'm going to say my version of events, and then if Andrea or Caroline has a different memory, then they can chip in as well. Okay, so I met Andrea through two ways. Firstly, it was her husband who had a sudden hearing loss. Andrea is a US-based audiologist, and it was her husband who had the hearing loss. So she joined my Facebook support group. And I also connected with Andrea. I realized this the other day. I also connected with her because I was also writing for Hearing Tracker, which is a US hearing aid resource website. And I was reaching out to audiologists in the US to ask if they could help me, with research-backed articles for quotes. So to help back my articles, really. And I think Andrea was also one of the people that I reached out at the time. And so that's how I met Andrea. And Caroline's in the UK. Caroline's a psychotherapist, and I met Caroline because she was part of my Facebook group, and we'd kind of started a bit of a friendship, just messaging each other private messages as well, and yeah, so we all connected like that. And the way the book came about, it was Andrea's idea to start. Andrea reached out to me and asked me whether I'd be interested in joining her in writing the book, and at the time I was super busy, and we kind of put it on hold just for a bit of time, and then we came back to it and we started planning it. And then during the planning phase, Caroline contacted me saying she was thinking of writing a book about the emotional impact of hearing loss. And after a bit of time, I managed to kind of connect these two worlds before we started reaching out to people for their stories to inform the book. So we kind of connected everyone together, and then that's how we decided that we were the dream team, the best ones to write this book, and that's the beginning of the story.
Thank you, Carly. Andrea, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and how you
like Carly mentioned, I'm an audiologist, and I've worked in clinic, I've worked in research, and I've worked in education. And when my husband's hearing loss happened in 2017, it was sudden and it was profound in 1 year, and I was so ill prepared for it, for the emotional impact of it. It just was heart-wrenching to see what he was going through with the tinnitus, and he didn't even have the dizzy side of it. It was just the hearing, and the tinnitus was enough to really throw him for a loop, and it threw me for a loop. And I looked for resources, and I looked out for Facebook groups and support, and I looked for information, and there was, what I knew from grad school was different than what I found online, and I did a lot of research, and I felt like, how would somebody get through this if they weren't an audiologist? And so that was part of my motivation. And then Carly has this Facebook group. She also has a support website, sudden hearing loss support.com, is it .org? And I had written an article for ASHA, which is sort of like the American version of your organization, and about our road to getting a cochlear implant. And I wrote much more than 500 words that ASHA could take for what I had. So I gave some of it to Carly on her site too. So that was kind of our beginning of getting to know each other and working together. But I really felt like we had something to share, and that there was this hole, this gap in the literature for patients. So I'm really so glad that we did this, and that the book has been very well accepted. So
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Andrea. And Caroline, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Caroline Norman. I'm a counsellor and psychotherapist based in the UK, working mainly in private practice. I actually work mostly with the Metropolitan Police at the moment, sort of counselling, supporting members of staff. I experienced sudden hearing loss myself in December 2020. And at the time, I found it really difficult to cope with the emotional side of it. A bit like Andrea mentioned with her husband, it was just really disorientating. And there was very little support or guidance out there in terms of how to manage those feelings. And even as a therapist, I really struggled to understand what I was going through. So I was looking online and I came across Carly's blog, and that was the first place I'd heard hearing loss grief mentioned, and that helped me kind of put two and two together and understand that, okay, I was grieving, and once I knew what was going on, I could work with that, but before I could put it into words, it was really difficult. So that was where I thought there was perhaps that gap for writing about the emotional aspect of hearing loss, to sort of give people a bit of a heads up about what they might be going through if they did experience a sudden hearing loss, to make it a little bit easier to deal with. And yeah, I agree with Carly's version of events in terms of how we all connected and yeah, came up with the idea for the book.
Lovely, thank you, Caroline. All right, so I did prepare a few questions. So, I mean, reading the book, I felt that you balanced storytelling and practical advice so well. Where did that come from? Who was, the story? You had a lot of people on your Facebook page that you was connecting with, and lots of stories. But yeah, it was something that I wish that I'd had years ago to share with customers. But yeah, do you want to? I don't know who wants to take that one.
I'm happy to.
Thank you,
So
Andrew.
I think what I contributed most to is sort of the more factual, very dry, basic information piece of this, and but because that's how I am, that's my expertise is in the audiology, not in the grief specialty. So it was great to have different perspectives, our three perspectives, but we wanted the perspectives of lots of people. So we kind of made an outline of topics, and then we put out a questionnaire to all these Facebook groups, I think 12 groups, and we got about 100 people who said they were interested, and in the end we got about 65 responses that are full responses that we could use. So we kind of wanted to collect a variety of stories because everyone's experience is so different, and we really got such a full range of answers from people who were even suicidal as far as, you know, dealing with the grief of their hearing loss and the loneliness and everything. And so this is so interesting to read, and there was so much more than what the three of us could contribute on our own. So I don't know if that answers your question, or if somebody wants to follow up. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to just follow a little bit, Andrea. I think, yeah, we reached out to get that variety of stories, and I think the way we structured that questionnaire, it is very much after connecting with so many people over the years, seeing the comments in Facebook groups, you kind of start to see these themes emerge. So you maybe have the theme, people are talking about how they're struggling to manage their tinnitus, maybe after sudden hearing loss, maybe their vertigo. And then there's the everyday life side of things. So it's, how do I go back to work with this? How do I speak to my friends and family about this? So there is the emotional aspect that we talked a bit about already, the grief, you know, the loss of confidence, but there's also these practical aspects as well. You know, like, how do I live my life without full sound? So in connecting with the people over the years and in those Facebook groups, you do see these patterns emerge, these themes. And I think that was quite important when we're thinking about that questionnaire of the things we wanted to learn more about.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, that definitely came across that loads of people. I've recommended it to, because I've only probably since reading it, I've had a couple of customers with sudden hearing loss. I've definitely recommended it. I saw the lady back in the clinic yesterday, and she couldn't tell me how you know, she couldn't get the words to say how incredibly useful it was for her and how comforting it was, and that, you know, these things were, you know, everybody else was experiencing these emotions. And yeah, you did it beautifully, ladies, honestly. Okay, so I mean, it is important to talk about the emotional aspect and grief and anxiety, and I think most people, most audiologists are, you know, we're not always equipped to do that. Like you said, Andrea, we deal in, you know, oh, try, you know, we'll fit you with this cross system, or yeah. So I don't know, Caroline, do you want to take something with the grief and anxiety, and yeah, how that, you know, because there was a lot of that, wasn't there? The emotion in there.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think
That
that
I think we discount it, and it's really not, we don't. I mean, GPs definitely do, ENT to some extent. Yeah, I don't think they realise it's all tied up in there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in terms of my own personal experience, the professionals that I encountered, GP, ENT, audiologists as well, were definitely more focused on the practical side of things, understandably so. Sort of trying to diagnose and see if there's a medical solution, and then sort of practical options like hearing aids and so on. But I think for myself, I was really struggling with, as you say, the grief, the emotional aspects, and that came through in a lot of the stories that we heard from other people as well. So I think it was really important for the book to address that, partly as a way to show people they're not alone in that experience, because I think sudden hearing loss can feel really isolating. It's, you know, it's fairly rare, and you don't tend to know anyone in your social circle that has experienced it before.
Yeah.
So partly to show them they're not alone, and partly to give them a bit of a map of the way through those experiences and emotions.
Yeah.
So
You also, sorry, go on, Andrea. Sorry.
I was going to point out that one of the main themes that came up, we kind of knew to expect also, was misdiagnosis, and the feelings that come from that, oh, if only, you know, the second guy I saw would not have given me those eardrops and those antibiotics, and they would have sent me right away, then this would have been solved. And number one, that's, you know, that's a different kind of grief than, I have this hearing loss. That's like, you know, regret, maybe some guilt. You know, I didn't call the right guy, I didn't ask the right question. So that's a big part of it for a lot of the people, and it's, you know, important for them to realize that well, it's important for the professionals to understand that they need to do this referral right away for the benefit of the patient. And that's, I think, one of our biggest challenges, is to get not to you guys, but to the broader world that doesn't know much about the sudden hearing loss, and to send them to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to add to that, Andrea, definitely. I think it's misdiagnosis, but it's also that lack of awareness. And it's not just the lack of awareness amongst the general public, it's a lack of awareness amongst clinicians and medical professionals. And often that first point of call, when somebody seeks medical attention, that they're actually presenting something that maybe the GP has never seen before. And that was my case. I was misdiagnosed. Firstly, I took 8 days to even see a doctor. And then, because I didn't know about this and it was an emergency, and then when I did see my doctor, I was misdiagnosed. So they just said everything looks okay, you know, try some ibuprofen and come back in a week if things aren't any better. Whereas if there was more awareness there, it would be immediately, okay, maybe get your ears checked, have a hearing test, and let's see what's going on. And yeah, so I think part of writing this book, my hope was definitely raising more awareness amongst not just the medical community, but amongst everyone. So even just somebody going to a GP and seeing the book on a table or a shelf with the word sudden hearing loss is spreading some awareness there that it's even a thing.
Yeah. When was your hearing loss, did you develop sudden hearing loss, Carly?
My sudden hearing loss was just over 9 years ago, so quite a long time ago now.
It's not an awful lot better now. The lady I was just referring to 6 months ago, she had the same, you know, I'm sure everyone here can tell us about somebody that went to the GP and it was, you know, ignored, or, you know, try this nasal spray, yeah, it's still happening today.
Yeah, I hear from people every day that it's happening too. They're waiting at like 3 months as well for like an appointment on the NHS, and that's often the minimum. My dad actually had a sudden hearing loss last year. It was conductive, but he didn't get to see an ENT on the NHS until a year later. So if he'd, you know, I sent him to, in the end he had to go private, but he wouldn't have seen somebody until a year later for his sudden hearing loss.
Yeah, because you do speak about people advocating for themselves, and I mean, I've become a lot firmer about that. It's like, go to your GP, you need some steroids, you know, and if you won't see you go up to A&E, you don't leave till you see the on-call registrar, you know, make a nuisance of yourself, you know, and I'm very clear about that, and you've got to be, yeah. Not everyone feels they can do that, but if we give them the confidence to do that and say you have to do it, it's a medical emergency, you must, yeah. But yeah,
it's not easy as well. You know, you're going through something really scary. You might be on your own if you don't have somebody with you. So it's raising that awareness that this is the thing to do, but in practice, sometimes people struggle with that. Of course, firstly, their access to sound has been changed. They're not sure how to navigate just the world without the full hearing they possibly had before. And they're also probably in shock. They're scared, they're worried, they're struggling to just, you know, live their day to day at that point sometimes. So it's really difficult to then have to fight so hard to get that treatment.
It is. I mean, as the older I've got, the more brazen I've rang GPs, and you know, in the past I thought, oh no, they won't speak to me, blah blah blah. But you know, I said, this is an emergency. This patient of yours, I need to speak to you, and they actually take it very, very. I was very surprised at how they responded, but they take it. They go, right, fine, I'll get him in. Yeah, I'll say he's actually there now. He's waiting in the reception. Can you please see him? I wouldn't have dreamt of doing that once over, but I absolutely would do and would now. And I think we all need to get into that position where we feel that we can do that. I'm sure we do. But yeah.
But sometimes,
sorry, Andrea.
Yeah, sometimes the point of contact is the GP and not the audiologist. And you
Yeah.
know, so they need to know even without you prompting them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's,
Yeah, they
but
do.
in contrast, I knew right away that when my husband had sudden hearing loss, you know, I called the doctor, we had steroids that day,
Yeah.
and I thought, well, at least I got on this immediately, so it's going to be okay. And it is okay, but his hearing is not.
Yeah.
He has a cochlear implant now in that ear, but his hearing did not come back. And that was the part that shocked me, because I'm like, we're on top of this. What do you mean it's not going to come back? I know it's a medical emergency. I know we're supposed to go in and get this taken care of. But you know, sometimes that's when
But
I
at
started
least you
really
haven't.
researching the
Yeah.
treatments, and you know.
Yeah. But you haven't got the regret that you didn't get that, because some people, that the emotional stuff is around, they didn't have that information. They wasn't able to even try that avenue.
Right.
But at least, you know, you was able to do that because you could advocate for him. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Anybody? So what would you say is the biggest misconception about sudden hearing loss amongst professionals? Who wants to go, Andrea?
I would say that it's, you know, that you have another ear, it's okay.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Well, you could hear out the other ear, right? That's what, you know, so it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that it's not as big of a deal as it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. I think there's, like we said before, a lot of misdiagnosis. So some medical professionals, I don't think even recognise it could be sudden hearing loss. That was my experience as well with my GP, who said it was, you know, probably an infection or wax or something, and just to see an audiologist. I also think there's a misconception, like Andrea says, that it's just one ear, and that it wouldn't have an emotional impact. I think the consultations can be quite quick and quite dry, without acknowledging what the person might be going through emotionally.
100%. Mm-hmm.
And then there's the vertigo piece of it.
Yeah.
Carly, you want to speak to that a bit? You know, going through that piece of it.
Sorry, could you repeat that, Andrea? I didn't hear you.
The vertigo.
Yeah. So yeah, for some people like me, sudden hearing loss wasn't just hearing loss in one ear. I mean, firstly, I'd like say, like Andrea said, it's never just hearing loss in one ear anyway, or two ears, however you have it. It affects your whole life. It affects the way you interact with the world. But some people also will have other symptoms, other conditions that come with this. So I also have tinnitus that came with it. I have constant tinnitus in my deaf ear and intermittent in my hearing. I have balance issues as well that have come with it that have lasted. I still have these. The vertigo at the time of the hearing loss, it was, as you would read in a textbook, it was the world just spinning around me. I remember I was at a teacher training day. I remember standing up to go to the toilet and falling into the wall, like holding on to the wall to get there. And it's kind of like this extra layer. It's like you're kind of dealing so much with that vertigo or the tinnitus that the hearing loss, it's not that it doesn't matter, but it's actually, for me and for many other people we talked to, it wasn't the first thing maybe that you noticed in that time. And it's maybe not the first thing that you're worried about, because at that time you're really thinking, how can I get through the day with vertigo, and how can I get through the day with tinnitus? And these two things are so intrusive that it's, you know, the hearing loss is there. You're struggling to communicate and hear and everything, but actually the more immediate things, for me particularly, was that vertigo and that the tinnitus as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I had a lady once, and again, like you, Carly, she was, you know, the tinnitus, the vertigo, she wasn't even aware, she said, till 2 or 3 weeks later when she was trying her AirPods, and she's like, oh, this one's not working. Oh gosh, it is working. And that, you know, so you're right, it's not always okay. So what could audiologists, HADs do better to support someone with the diagnosis? Because I don't always feel, I don't have the counselling skills that Caroline has, and, and Carly, we've all got personal insight. So what could we do? What could we do better? Anyone?
I think potentially sort of recognizing that emotional impact may well be there, and possibly having sort of resources that you can give people, like the book, for example, like our book, or places you can refer people, like Carla's hearing loss coaching, who need that bit of extra support with the emotional side of things.
Carly, can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I would personally I'd like somewhere to send because I'm not equipped to do this. I'd like to have something in my toolbox to say, yeah, you need some help around this. And so can you tell us a little bit about your support?
Yeah, so I set up the coaching practice online just for that reason. There was this gap in the treatment journey. So after people have, maybe tried hearing devices or have hearing devices, and then, like in my case, I tried a hearing device in the beginning and it didn't work for me. I was then just left to live life with hearing loss. There was no resources out there. There's no help for that. There's nobody there to help me, figure out how do I go back to work and ask for the accommodations I need. There's nobody there to say, right, you need to speak to your family about this. What do you want them to know about your hearing loss? How can they help you in communication? There was none of this kind of it's like this I would say it's like a bridge. You need that bridge between the clinical care and then just living with hearing loss. So my hearing loss coaching is for people who are looking for support with self-advocacy, so learning how to speak up for yourself, figuring out what you need, because that's a step as well. I think I look back on when I went back to work and I didn't know what I needed in the workplace with hearing loss because I'd never done it before. So going back to the job that I used to do, but without full hearing, I couldn't have a meeting with the head teacher at that point and say, I need this, this, and this, because I didn't know. So I had to first figure out, so do the job for a bit, figure out that, and then think about how do I want this conversation to go with my head teacher or, with your boss? What are you going to ask and how are you going to do it? So it's just all these things. So having a script for that kind of thing, talking to your friends and family, learning to build that confidence after losing hearing. Because when something like your hearing changes, it changes the way that you understand the world. It changes the way you interact with the world. And it does have an impact on everyday life. And a lot of people I coach, they're looking for help with their confidence. They're looking for help speaking up. And having these important conversations. And so yeah, that's kind of where my heart is right now, just helping people to live well with their hearing loss.
So in some of my clinical practice, I worked with ENT and I would see a patient do a hearing test and then send them off to the doctor. And if they weren't getting devices, I would never see them again. And, there was, like you said, this gap of just, this bridge to real life living. One-on-one, what Carly does is amazing. I don't think that everybody is going to take advantage of that. I'm really proud of the appendix that we put in the book, which is, a list of resources. And we tried to be global about it. So there's resources in Australia, UK, America, mainly, Canada, some, and just, things that organizations or reading material that people could, point patients towards, or patients can find themselves. But I think the best thing clinicians can do, obviously, is listen to their patients and give them the time to express their grief. And sometimes that doesn't have to take your whole afternoon. It can be a few minutes. But it'd be nice to have the luxury to reschedule, to schedule follow-up with these patients. You know, how are you doing and what can I do to help you and what resources do you need? I know that's tricky.
Yeah. Yeah, it is, but you know, like you say, the appendix in here, and you know, hopefully we've equipped people, you know, with some suggestions, because I didn't have anybody either until now. I didn't feel I had anywhere to send people for that emotional support, the counselling, and yeah. So okay, so what message of encouragement would you give to anybody newly diagnosed? Because they're probably feeling, you know, newly diagnosed, feeling pretty hopeless. Who wants to take it?
I can take it. So I think the main thing I'd want to say is that things can get better. Like you say, I think you can feel really, really hopeless when you're newly diagnosed. And there could be layers on that, such as if you were misdiagnosed. So it's a real struggle, and as Carly said, trying to navigate the world with your hearing sort of very different to the way it used to be. It can take a long time to do that, but I do think that things can get better and that there's a reason to be hopeful with it, and you can adapt, and there's information out there and people to support. So yeah, I think my main message would be one of hope.
Yeah, I think the key word that Caroline just said is adapt, because people feel like this is the end of their world, and you know, if this doesn't get, you know, resolve itself, then I don't know how I can go on. And then they over time realize they can go on. And I think seeing all these stories of other people that felt that way at the beginning and then have come to terms with their hearing loss and adapted gives people hope that they can adapt to, even if it's not better. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Andrea. I think as well, just like to build on all of those comments, is that, you know, whatever the outcome, so if you're early in this, if you've just had a diagnosis or if you just started treatment, whatever the outcome, it's going to be all right. There's, you know, life can still be good whether you've got hearing loss or not. You know, that there is amazing technology out there right now. I'm sporting my cochlear implant here. There's hearing aids, there's assistive listening devices, things that can, you know, you can have microphones that can help make things more easy. There's so many technologies out there right now, and it's advancing really quickly. And there's also communities out there. So I would always say to people, find that community, find the people who have gone through what you have done. You can do that from our book. There's a community there waiting for you. And it's a way that you can, you know, you can join a community without even interacting if you don't feel comfortable doing that. But once you do feel comfortable, you know, there's online groups, there's Facebook support groups. Look for a local hearing loss organisation in the UK. You have yourselves, you have BSHAA, but you have the ones like RNID, you have hearing link services. There's the support out there, and find those people, connect with those people, and, you know, share stories, because there's so much hope in sharing stories and learning from each other.
Yeah, 100%. Do we have any questions, Zoe, in the chat that we might want to?
Not yet, but I'd encourage anyone to put any questions in the chat, and then we can cover those as well.
Yeah, I mean, my takeaway from reading the book was sudden hearing loss. It's more than a diagnosis. It's an emotional journey. And the empathy and understanding is just as important as the clinical care. It just made me think so much more about everybody that I'd seen with this diagnosis, and perhaps what I could have done better. Yeah, I do encourage everyone to read the book. I struggle usually reading audiology textbooks, I'm completely honest, but I whizzed through it, loved it. It was just, but I do love all that, the emotional side of hearing loss, and I prefer it to all the technical stuff, 100%. But yeah, it was incredibly useful, and I would recommend, obviously, any customer I had, but also all my colleagues, and like I say, GPs, ENT. I don't know if they would, but they would benefit massively from reading it. So does anyone got any questions? Or does Carly, Andrea, Caroline, have you got anything else you would like to add?
I'd just like to show the book. It's here, it's probably back to front on your screens, just so that people can recognise what it looks like if they are looking for it online or in a bookshop.
Okay.
I was going to say, if anyone would like to ask any questions, if they'd like to, feel free to unmute and ask a question as well, and we'll try and take them one at a time. Or it might be that you've covered everything perfectly already.
Well, thank you very much, ladies, for joining us. Carly, where can we find, are we able to, because I'd like people to be able to find the support that you know, is it all in the appendix here in the book, but we could do to have that available if we needed to signpost anybody? Can we?
Yeah, I'll tell you a few of the websites, but also if people just want to contact me, I don't know if there's a way of, well, I write a blog, it's called My Hearing Loss Story. You can contact me through that. The hearing loss support group is also called My Hearing Loss Story, so it's nice and easy to remember. And there is Sudden Hearing Loss Support. That's the website that I created with audiologists and hearing loss associations, which answers most immediate questions. It has people's stories on there. It has links to resources on there as well. And my coaching it's just Carly Sygrove, hearing loss coaching.
So we've gotten some really nice reviews and feedback from readers. Carly, did you have some of those that you were going to share, putting you on the spot?
Yeah, so recently I got a really lovely review that I sent both to you and Andrea and Caroline. I could read a little snippet from it.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so generally we've had people telling us that this is the kind of book that they wish they'd had going through their hearing loss, so they're finding it later on. So obviously our we want to try and get this into the hands of people earlier on. But anyway, so this is from somebody who emailed me a few weeks ago, and they said, I just would like to thank you for your book, Sudden Hearing Loss. I am one of those people that this happened to. It happened on Christmas Day, 2019. I literally have had no support of any kind for these past 5 years. Your book changed my life. I feel like I can accept what I have gone through in this time. I literally have been alone in this struggle for the past 5 years. Your words have really helped me see things differently. You made me feel that I'm not the only one who has gone through this, as I have felt. I never grieved. I was just really angry, thinking I was the only one that something like this could happen to. I now see how wrong I was, thanks to your book. And I think, like, reading these kind of like thoughts on our book, it's the reason we did it, is to help people like this. I don't know how you feel, Andrea, Caroline.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I think it's exactly the reason that we wrote the book, so that people feel less alone. And yeah, great that people are benefiting so much from it.
Yeah, it's sad, and sudden hearing loss happens to people all over the world. And, you know, and some of the people that reached out to us, you know, didn't have strong English necessarily, and were really, really alone, and, you know, maybe in a country that didn't have many ENTs in the whole country. Yet they're going through this, and it's very sad to think how lonely people feel with it.
Yeah, anyone would be lucky to get hold of this book in those early days. It would 100% help them. Yeah. So thank you very much, ladies. It's been very, very useful. And I again encourage you all to buy the book, have it in your office, in your front, in your reception. Yay! Okay, no questions still. No. All right then. Okay, well, thank you everyone for joining us. I hope it's been useful. Okay, thank you.